Hi everyone, Dan Paulson here. I'm going to experiment a little bit on this video. I've just been thinking about something, and a couple of things have emerged in the last few videos that have kind of got me going a certain direction here. And I want to talk a little bit more about discriminating and about listening to people, believing what people say. I tell you things all the time. People should be saying, how do you know that stuff? I don't want anybody to believe me because I say something. Let me look at something here. I'm going to jump to the Bible, the NRSV. Matthew 5:3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Luke 6:20, blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Okay, I will say that from my current understanding, after a lot of work, I can say that I can look at those two verses and say they interpret, and they're the exact same thing. They mean exactly the same thing. Although I know years ago I looked at those two and went, what kind of conflicting craziness is this? That doesn't make any kind of sense. And of course, this is about discriminating. So, years ago, as I am trying to figure that stuff out, and I'm talking to people, I'm talking to very learned and high-level theists that are describing how those work. Man, I can't even remember some of this stuff. Most of it was, I remember sitting there thinking, this person is wandering all over the place saying the craziest stuff and has no idea. I'm just supposed to sit here and believe what they're telling me as if they have some sort of insights and inroads that I am not capable of having. And I thought to myself, this is not true. That's not right. Whatever they're telling me, I cannot, when they describe it to me, it doesn't make sense. When I look at it, I think it still doesn't make sense. It's off in the supernatural realm and a variety of other things that have to do with wealth and non-wealth. And there are people who are interpreting it, but still haven't got it turned completely in. Okay, discriminating. This is where I can say those mean the same, and you should say, prove it. Show me. If you can make a claim, you should be able to demonstrate it. And and everybody's good at making claims that they cannot demonstrate. So there's a different distinction going on here. I'm going to start by going someplace else first. I'm going to relay a story. There was in my earlier life, in my early 20s, I was over in Okinawa, Japan. I was in the military and I was stationed over there. I had a lot of problems. I'm in the military pretending like everything is okay, but like anybody in life, you're putting on a show. Meanwhile, you got a lot of hurt, you got a lot of pain, you're putting stuff away. More things are accumulating. But while I'm there, there's where I'm living down the street is this house. It's an old Okinawan house, and they converted it into a little Buddhist hangout place, a monastery. Although it was not, it was very unfancy. But I remember going in there and just thinking, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I'm hurt. I'm looking for something. I go in not knowing what to expect. Nobody there speaks English well enough. They're just kind of, please sit down and just meditate. I sat there for a while. Eventually, there's a young monk come in that has some broken English, and he asked, just kind of asked if I need anything. And I had a copy of the Dhammapada at that time, and I was reading it and thinking, this is the weirdest stuff I ever heard. This doesn't make any kind of sense. And it's supposed to be, Buddhism is supposed to be good for you. It's supposed to be loving and peace. Oh, I didn't understand it. And his English wasn't that good, but I'm asking him something, and he just says, make it about you. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm asking him a few other things, and he says, make it about you, all of it. Make it about you. And even then, that was as much as he could tell me at that time, and it didn't mean anything to me. It was hard. But I kept, for some reason, things happen that just make you keep pushing along. And eventually, I want to show you something here that what I come to with respect to Buddhism and Taoism in looking at verses and how we mirror turning them inward and making them a part of our psyche and how those work first. Let's go look at those. I'll start with Buddha, Dhammapada, Mueller translation. Just one verse. I'll walk you through this. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Okay, in order to make this short as possible, I'm going to have to make claims. So, again, data points. And let's just step right into it and see how that works. So for interpreting, if we look at this. If I say all that I am is the result of what I have thought, I think to myself, well, that seems kind of weird. I've thought some crazy things that I didn't become. There's a lot of things I am that I don't think. So I look at that right off the bat and go, that doesn't make sense. I don't get that. It's founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him, as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. You ever have bad things happen when you weren't thinking anything evil? You look at these and go, they don't make sense. It doesn't work that way. So that's when we learn to play them out, mirror them into the psyche, and then we're going to see where they fit. I'm going to jump ahead. Here's other lessons that I'm going to throw in here that, again, data points, okay? The material eventually unfolds to where there are 5 basic concepts. A conscious mind, we're using that right now. As we do that, we process things and we store it away, and that becomes our subconscious. And the nature of how it is stored away, it can act out. It might be knowledge, it might be joy, it might be shame, it might be hurt. All of those things are a part of who and what we are as we live life. We're experiencing that life and we're putting those away. Those are the parts that act out of us. They might be angels, they might be demons. What is it that comes out? We become possessed by things in there. Then there's the unified field that we all operate within. So that's the 4th thing. And then there's a higher self, a part of us that can look at our life detached from it without the emotional connection to it. Okay, that having been said, let's jump into what this would mean then. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. What we have thought, we have stored that away. Our consciousness had an experience. I got raped, I got molested, I got beat, I got told I was stupid and worthless and all those things over and over again. And I listened to that and I got angry and I became that. And that is up here. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. I have thought. That was not me thinking, I want this. That's me thinking, I hate this. We start out, many of us, victims. We don't know any different. So we take that on and we're in that role. We have become victims. This material, when you're ready to go on the journey, becomes the guru. You then realize that what you are is the result of the experiences that you have had in life. But actually, moreover, you're not a product of what happened to you in life. You're a product of the emotional state in which you continue to maintain those experiences, the memory of those experiences. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Okay, we're not speaking or acting with an evil thought, speaking, acting. What we have is things stored away in our subconscious, our memories, things that we have put away that we probably don't want to deal with if they're acting out like that. And what these are, the evil really is anything that we harbor inside of us. Remember, these are playing out inside. It's not evil about there. It's the evil that we harbor in. Evil is an analog, which means derogatory things that take you off course from nirvana in this case, inner peace, your happiness, the kingdom of heaven within. It's going to be used in a variety of ways. Okay. So those have been put away. And what happened? The pain follows as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. So now we're getting some more ideas here, a visual, the analog, a wheel circles around and around. Pain follows as the wheel. The pain continually cycles around, following the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. We are the ox drawing the carriage. This is our path. We're walking along. And as we do, the things that we harbor inside of us are going to continue to act out like the wheel following until we do something to interact with it. The very next verse says, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. That's so far identical. Here's the difference. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Pure thought, pure thinking, pure mind. This isn't active thinking. This is stored thinking. This is the result of our life experiences. Now we have to begin, as it goes on, it's going to start getting into healing and things like that. But this right here is letting us know that we are products of our life experiences and the way that we hold them up here. And the painful stuff is going to keep coming around and around. And once we resolved it, we have peace, like sitting in the shade and it doesn't leave. Okay, so if you've heard anything about Buddha, seek emptiness, what is that? How can you be empty when you should be rich and full and things like that? You be rich and full of life. You be empty of all of the things that prevent the peace, the joy. That is what you're seeking emptiness from. The clinging, the hanging on to, the wanting, the anger, the shame, the pain, the it's never good enough, I'm this, I'm that, you're this, you're all of that stuff you have to be empty of. Seeking emptiness is seeking freedom from all of that stuff. Okay, I'm going to move on now to Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching. And in this case, I'm going to use the Stephen Mitchell translation, just smaller to hold. Verse 11, we join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. Okay, first of all, joining spokes together in a wheel. We just saw that in Buddha's teaching. The wheel goes around. The wheel is a cycle. The wheel is something that represents a cycle that we're going to see in teachings. There are a lot of ways to show cycles. It's a big deal. But it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. So here we have a wheel rotating with something that is, we have an axle in there, and that's what makes the wagon move. It's following. If we treat those as analogs for something in our psyche, then how does that play out? That whatever is happening, cycling around and around, is based on what we are holding up in here. This one doesn't say good or bad, or this one, unlike Buddha's, where it says holding bad creates a cyclical and holding good makes it stay good. You stay in the shade of the good. This one isn't going that detailed. This one is just telling you that whatever is in the center makes it happen. It's complete. If we move on to the next one, then we are the pot. The emptiness inside is what holds whatever we want. We need to be empty inside. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We create ourselves. All of these are about us. I'm going to suggest a couple of things. I shouldn't do this. I go all over. We remember from Jesus, first clean the inside of the cup so that the outside also may be clean. How about being a wine vessel that wants to put new wine into your old self, into your old wineskin? We become these. These become analogous to who and what we are, repetitively. And in the end, it says we work with being, but non-being is what we use. We work with life, with the physical, with what is happening, but non-being is what we use. The things that are not physical, but are stored away, that is what functions outside of us. We have a similar teaching here carried in a different vehicle. Now, let's jump back to the Bible. Before I do, I want to caveat this with the idea that you have to look at these teachings and decide whether or not you're going to do this and say, well, this one turns inward and becomes part of my psyche. That one turns inward and becomes part of my psyche. All those ones turn inward and become part of my psyche. What if I treat this one the same way? Even though Christians will tell me, don't do that, Mr. New Ager. You're going to go to hell. I would just thank them for carrying the ark so that I can see inside. Thank you. Okay. And out of context. Everything is in context, and I'll tell you why. Somebody might look at that and say, that's about Pharisees and scribes. That's not about the individual. It's out of context. They haven't done any interpretation. It's not about Pharisees and scribes. It is all about us. It is in context. You have to interpret the entire Bible, not one or two verses. Okay, let's go right back where we started then. Matthew 5:3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Remembering now, every one of them is going to be played out in the psyche. They're going to turn in. One of them says poor in spirit. What is spirit? Spirit is some nebulous sort of a thing that lives on afterwards. I don't know. We've got something acting out inside of us that we need to interact with. What is that? Is it a spirit, or is it memories and things that we have stored away that we don't have resolved? That is the spirit in their world. Do they know what a brain and a subconscious mind is and what is happening? Or do they know that here's a consciousness and I'm making these choices? But sometimes something happens, it comes out of me, and I don't know what that is. That's a bad spirit. I got something inside of me that's just not okay. Kingdom of heaven, analogous to now, here, kingdom of heaven within. It's analogous. It will match with all of the other teachings if you treat the kingdom of heaven as inner peace. Poor in spirit, then empty, devoid of those things, right? If we go to Luke, then, blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Poor, turn it inward, same thing. Poor, empty, devoid of. I don't want things in my soul, in my spirit. Poor is not a state of, I'm hungry and broke and don't have shoes on my feet. That's not what this is about. This is about poor in spirit still. They all turn inward. Even though that doesn't say it here, treat it like it's a spiritual verse. Turn it inward. The kingdom of God, analogous to the same thing again. Peace. Okay. We see how that would work. And what I want to suggest is that when people are telling you, these are the same and here's why, make them show you. And people might look at what I did and go, he's wrong. Or any other thing. If you look at this and go, okay, I see the sequence, I see the flow, and I see what you're doing, then everybody that gets to that point should be able to replicate the same thing. You don't have to say, well, this is what Dan says, so we got to do it. That should never be right. When you take this path, I realize that it is for us that go, yep, I know how to apply that. It goes inside of my mind, and only I can do that in there. So it is my material. It becomes mine. We are in a unique kind of place compared to other people who don't see it this way. So this part I really want to share, but it becomes difficult for people, and it has to be out on the table. It is a part of what I see. That Christianity at some point you realize is carrying, there is a healing template and a healing process that exists across the board in antiquity, and it's in Christianity as well as other places. What does that tell you about them all? Anyway, okay, so I hope in this case I've been able to demonstrate really that this is how it unfolds, but also that if I say something like, oh, these two mean the same thing, people should be going, oh yeah? Show me that. Prove that. If you can't demonstrate it, you're just talking. Like a theist who says, here it is, that's what it says, everything else is wrong. Okay, demonstrate it to me. It says right here, demonstrate it to me. Demonstrate it. Yeah, you can't. There's a point where you go, okay, I'm going to look for my own answers. I can interact with this and change my life now. Living verse sounds like living verse, not wait till you die verse. All right. Was that rough? Sorry. I get that way. Okay, if you're hooked into studying, I haven't made this point in a video in a long time, and I think there's enough new people on board right now that I would like to do this because we're looking for material to study with and looking at things online. I'm going to tell you, translations can be an issue. If you're looking for, I would not read anything but the NRSV, I think, for Bible. You know what? I said that, and then I continued on, and I went back and listened to it, and I didn't say why. Okay, the King James Version is probably... That's the mainstay. I would use this one, and I like my red letter edition, and I use this quite a bit. However, it uses Old English. Versions downstream from this, I wouldn't use anything that's interpreted from this. I would go upstream, if anything, and that's what this does. This turns into a translation of the Bible from its Greek source into English without going through the Old English and without going through King James translation. And it is highly accurate and it is unbiased. I think that translations, if somebody's translating that is a theist, that is translating material, even if they are open-mindedly doing it as honestly as they can, they nevertheless have a belief and a faith. And if they have a word or a couple of words, it's like, I'm not quite sure exactly which word to use to best describe this. I think that they will err on the side, naturally they would, any of us would. We would err on the side of supporting what our belief is. These guys don't have a belief. They're just trying to translate accurately what is there. I trust this more. Yeah, that's what I would stick with. The Dhammapada from Buddha, this is a great copy. I've got another one somewhere that's a recent one, but I would not deviate too much. There's a lot of copies that came from this, Buddhism itself has a lot more to it as well, though. It's a great study if you want to do that. I think Buddhism might be the easiest path to take once you learn how to decode this. And the translations work incredibly well. The Tao Te Ching. Yeah, they're falling all over. Chinese does not translate well. You can go between these books and read a verse and go, well, that sounds weird. I'm going to pull up another one and read and see how it is. And it's like, what? Are those even the same thing? These are tricky. I would recommend, and there's people that will say only use one. People claim this is a favor, and I've got issues with this one after what I have found, because I find things in these that one lacks. I would not listen to anybody. I would find out for myself. Taoism is wonderful. It's a fun place to go, and it's a fun thing to study. It's great to teach. I love it, but it is... Okay, now you see that there are nested teachings in here that are held in verbs, nouns, and concepts. And when the translations are being made, when the translations are close from one language to another, it's easy to maintain that. When they're different, it's not. But here's something else. If the translator knows the language but doesn't know that there's a nested meaning, they could easily lose it. And that is what happens in the Tao Te Ching. Sometimes one translation will just deviate off, and you're like, what? That doesn't even fit in the psyche. Then you read somewhere else and go, okay, I see. Someone's picked it up. You almost have to average that out. That's what I would recommend. It is not easy to just sit here in English and go through this stuff if you want to do that. Another thing with Jesus, this is tough. I want to say, if you want to study Jesus at this level, on that inner thing, read 3 things. Only the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Plain, and the Gospel of Thomas. That contains all of the teachings, everything that you need to know, what you need to do to turn inward, what your life experience is going to be like, how people around you might act. All of that is going to come into play in that. As you get into Christianity and get into the other flow and get into what was created as Jesus' ministry, which is the path, well, that gets more complicated. The lessons are still there, but it's starting to go downstream. It is moving from a very concise source of verses and start shifting off into more complex, analogous places to go. Jesus is easiest understood at this level. If you want to know Christianity, go study Christianity. If you want to study Jesus as a Buddha or a Lao Tzu, just stick with there. Go upstream. Go to the most succinct upstream material that you can. And I mean, seriously, it's like with the Bible, for example. If you're reading something that came from the King James Version, you are reading a translation that comes from a theist that doesn't know what's nested in there and is trying to do a better job to explain Christianity. You're going to be losing a lot of stuff. If you want to study the religions themselves, get all the material that each of them have a lot of material. You can get a lot of stuff on Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, anything you want. If you want to get more into those studies, you can. This inward path, turning it inward, that's where I'm focused my attention on right here. And it can be a little contentious, I know, for some people, simply because it's kind of stepping into a new area with their material that they're very comfortable and familiar with, and suddenly you're showing things that are like, boy, I don't know if I like what you're doing there. Some do. Some are like, oh, thank you, and some are not. Yeah, it's just the way it is. It is the way it is. We'll do our best to deal with it. All right. Well, hope the video was enjoyable, and love one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bonus material if you're interested. The first Buddha verse, the one about the wheel going around, and that whatever you're holding in that creates the circular pattern of emergence, where it comes over and over again based on what is held inside of there. Does Jesus have a parallel teaching? Yes. And this is why the analogs in an analog dictionary would be so complicated. Think about this. Judge not, lest ye be judged. For the measure with which you mete unto others will be meted likewise unto you. Or words to that effect. How is that the same thing? Play it out in the psyche. What are we judging? We're judging our experience. Judge not. We are judging that hatred, that pain, that shame, that I don't have this. We're judging something. And based on the measure of that, it is going to be likewise meted unto us. We are creating our own reality. As within, so without. The cycle is inferred in this case. As long as you're doing it, you're getting it back. It's there. Cycles are elsewhere. Trees getting cut up and chopped down that grow back until, it's been pulled out, or trees that grow up that don't produce anything that are being told die. All of those are parts of in here. They're going to make sense there. Have a good one.